Hey everyone, this is Chef, and in this video, we're going to talk about Celestial Renegade in World vs. World. This includes basic profession mechanics, build options, synergies, rotations and skill combos, and your role in an organized squad. If there's a specific topic that you're interested in, you can use the video timestamps to navigate to where you want to go. Cele Renegade, along with Cele Firebrand and Cele Scourge, make up the hybrid support core that's popular with current squads. Cele Renegade provides good boon uptime for allies, removes boons from enemies, and has some unique profession mechanics that help to mitigate incoming damage. And despite being nerfed for the release of Janthier Wilds, it's still a serviceable build for the right groups. It's also as close as World vs. World comes to a low intensity build, and as a result, it's a good option for players who struggle with the quick reaction times necessary to play other support professions in the game mode. Playing Renegade successfully comes down to good energy management. So we're going to start with this mechanic that's shared across all of Revenant's specializations. Your energy builds over time while you're in combat, with each arrow on your energy bar corresponding to gaining or losing 1 energy per second. This energy resets to 50 anytime you're out of combat, or anytime you swap your active legend. Being in combat and doing nothing will gain energy over time, while spamming skills will quickly deplete your energy. Everything you do on Renegade costs energy. Not just your utility and profession skills, but your weapon skills as well, and careful management of your energy is essential to playing this build effectively. As you may have guessed from the name, we'll be using the Celestial prefix on almost all of our gear. This Renegade build takes advantage of many of the stats that Celestial offers, so it's a natural choice for the build. However, pure Celestial doesn't quite get you to the boon duration cap, so you will need to use a few pieces of Diviner's gear or some other prefix to get to 100%. In the linked build, you can do this with your helm and chest armor to any prefix that has concentration as a major stat, but you can use any combination you want, as long as you have at least 975 concentration. For our weapons, you can use either shortbow or mace sword. Renegade's rotation, as we'll discuss later, is very strict on energy management. As a result, you will almost never use your weapon skills, since they interfere with the energy that you need to spend on other more important abilities. Their only purpose is to get your energy as low as possible before swapping legends, and other than that, you'll be ignoring them completely. That said, we do benefit from their stats, sigils, and weapon swapping, so on your weapons of choice we'll be using a sigil of concentration and a sigil of energy for better boon uptime and overall survivability. On our armor, we'll be using runes of leadership for the same reason, and for our relic, we'll use the new relic of rivers to improve our personal alacrity access. As with other Revenant specializations, for Renegade we don't select any of our utility skills. Instead, we select our legends, and each legend comes with unique utility skills that are slotted for us. For this build, we'll be using the Dwarf and Demon legends. Dwarf gives access to Inspiring Reinforcement, which pulses stability to allies while damaging enemies. Vengeful Hammers, which mitigates incoming damage while damaging nearby enemies. And Rite of the Great Dwarf, which reduces incoming damage on both yourself and nearby allies. In Demon, we get Banish Enchantment, which removes boons from enemies at range, and Pain Absorption, which gives resistance to allies and is a personal stun break. In a pinch, you can also use Call to Anguish in Demon to reposition yourself out of a tough spot. For your Renegade profession skills themselves, Orders from Above is the most important of the three, providing pulsing alacrity to allies. As with your weapon skills, the rest of the profession skills that you get out of Dwarf, Demon, and your Renegade profession skills will generally go unused unless you need to manage your energy. Moving on to our traits, we'll take Devastation 211, Invocation 212, and Renegade 313. Our Devastation minor traits give us an additional source of vulnerability and improve the strike damage that we deal, with a little bit of additional damage when using an offhand weapon if you choose to use Mace Sword instead of something like Shortbow. In our major traits, Unsuspecting Strikes improves our strike damage further against enemies above 80% health, Assassin's Presence generates Fury for our party while in combat, and Brutality removes stacks of stability from enemies when we have Quickness, which we get from swapping weapons. Brutality only removes 1 application of stability per interval, and also only triggers once every 9 seconds per target, and also only works while we have Quickness, so it's not trivial to maintain. but anything that removes additional stability from enemies is very valuable in the current meta, and so we take it here. In Invocation, our minor traits improve our Fury generation, giving us 100% uptime as long as we're legend swapping on cooldown with Invoker's Rage. We also get a 7% damage increase while affected by Fury, and some minor energy generation when we break stuns. In our major traits, we further improve our strike damage while our own health is above 90%, and we grant additional boons to allies when we legend swap, giving stability when swapping to Dwarf, and resistance when swapping to Demon. Our final major trait, Charged Mists, is the primary mechanic that we'll be using in our rotation. Normally, when you legend swap, your energy is reset to 50, but with Charged Mists, as long as you're at or below 10 energy when you swap, you get an additional 25 energy for free, giving you more energy to spend on your high-value utility skills and Alacrity generation. As we'll talk about in the rotation section, you want to trigger Charged Mists on every legend swap, so that you can cast more of your skills for free. Finally, in Renegade, our minor traits allow us to build stacks of Kala's Fervor when dealing critical strikes, or strikes from flanks. Endless Enmity gives us even more personal fury, which we don't really need, but also gives permanent fury to our allies as long as we deal critical strikes. And Brutal Momentum gives us increased critical hit chance, making fury uptime for allies more consistent. In our major traits, we're really only taking Renegade for Alacrity uptime via orders from above in the first place, so we take Righteous Rebel, improving the duration and radius of orders. The other two trait columns don't contribute very much to the build. The first column gives some additional sources of Kala's Fervor, with Wrought Iron Will having the most group utility, and the second column gives us access to resistance well in Dwarf if we need it, by adding personal resistance to our heal, but this conflicts with our energy management in our rotation. Moving on to our rotations and skill combos, Renegade is somewhat unique among World vs. World professions in how consistent your rotation is. In other support videos, we've talked about proactive versus reactive support professions, but Renegade is neither. Instead, Renegade has 5 high-value skills: Orders from Above, Inspiring Reinforcement, Rite of the Great Dwarf, Banish Enchantment, and Pain Absorption. And you want to cast each of these skills as often as possible to provide as much support and utility to your group as you can. Every second that you're in combat, you gain 5 energy, and you gain 75 energy when you legend swap, as long as you trigger Charged Mists. This means that every 10 seconds, the legend swap cooldown, you have 125 energy to spend. Your entire rotation is about spending as much of that energy as efficiently as possible on your 5 high-value skills. This is complicated slightly by the fact that Orders from Above has a longer cooldown than your legend swaps, so there are some rotations where you don't need to cast Orders from Above, giving you your full 125 energy to spend, and some rotations where you do, giving you only 105. This means that Renegade has 4 individual rotations, and you have to choose the correct one based on your current legend, and whether Orders from Above can be cast in the next 10 seconds. Starting with Dwarf, and not needing to cast Orders, Inspiring Reinforcement is your most valuable skill in this legend. To manage its cooldown, you want to cast it as soon as you can upon entering Dwarf, and then again right before you exit Dwarf, spreading out your stability applications as much as possible. This uses up 60 of your 125 energy, so we spend 40 more on one cast of Rite of the Great Dwarf, which is good to use before a push or when grinding in melee, leaving 25 energy that you can spend on whatever you want. Weapon skills may be decent choices here, like Sword 4 to immobilize enemies, Shortbow 4 to spread conditions, or Shortbow 5 to stun enemies, or to spread a bit of might to allies by using your Citadel Order Heroic Command. If you need to cast Orders from Above while you're in Dwarf, you can just skip the extra energy that you spend at the end of your rotation. Ignore your weapon skills, ignore Heroic Command, and use the spare 25 energy to cast Orders from Above when it's available. Switching to Demon, without orders available, your most valuable skill here is Banish Enchantment, to remove boons from enemies. As with Inspiring Reinforcement, you'll want to cast this skill twice while you're in Demon, so use it immediately upon entering, and immediately before leaving. You'll also want to use Pain Absorption to spread resistance to allies, and the easiest way to spend 125 energy is to just use Pain Absorption twice, once when you enter, and once when you leave, along with Banish Enchantment. That gives you almost 8 seconds of downtime in this rotation, during which you'll want to maintain auto attacks and weapon swaps on cooldown for as many brutality triggers as you can manage. In Demon, but needing to cast orders from above, we simply drop one cast of Pain Absorption. This puts us at 110 spent energy, which isn't quite enough to trigger Charged Mists, so a single cast of either Sword 4, Shortbow 4, or Heroic Command will put you at the Charged Mist threshold and refund energy when you swap. You may not like it, but this is Renegade's ideal rotation, and if you were just attacking a target golem, you could do it forever. But in a fight, sometimes you get stunned or feared, sometimes there's lag, or something else goes wrong, and the tight math of the rotation starts to break down. It happens. That's a normal part of playing Renegade. But when this does happen, it's important to be able to recover quickly, so that you can continue to maintain boons and boon strips for your squad. In these situations, you'll almost always have more energy than you need to trigger Charged Mists, and so you want to look for ways to dump energy quickly, so that you can legend swap, get your energy refund, and get back to your normal rotation. This gets a little complicated because while you're in combat, you're always gaining 5 energy per second. So if you try and dump energy on skills with long cast times, like Citadel Bombardment, Rite of the Great Dwarf, or Soothing Stone, you may find that the cast time is so long that you're back above 10 energy by the time it's finished casting. Instead, your best energy dump skills are skills that go fast, like Vengeful Hammers, which basically negates your energy upkeep, Sword 4, Shortbow 4, Heroic Command, Forced Engagement, or extra casts of skills that you already wanted to use, like Pain Absorption, Banish Enchantment, or Inspiring Reinforcement. The 25 energy that you get out of Charged Mists is worth 5 seconds of being in combat doing nothing, so it's always a good idea to dump energy and legend swap below 10%, rather than legend swap immediately to get back to your rotation and miss out on that 25 free energy. The last topic that I want to cover for Renegade is a little cheesy, and it isn't really something that most Renegades are expected to do during normal play. I'll be honest with you, part of me hopes that by including it in this video, it's something that ends up getting changed in the future, because personally, I just don't like it, and that's resistance stacking. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that when you legend swap, it resets your energy to 50. But while you're out of combat, switching what legend you have equipped also resets your energy to 50. One of Renegade's unique qualities is how long the duration of its boons are. Orders from Above is just a little over a second of Alacrity, but it pulses 6 times. Inspiring Reinforcement gives 6 seconds of stability, but it pulses every second as well, for 5 seconds, extending this duration out to around 11 seconds of stability total. And Pain Absorption gives 6 seconds of resistance. But what makes Pain Absorption different is that Pain Absorption has no cooldown. It's only limited by its energy cost. So you can pre-stack resistance before a fight, up to 30 seconds, by repeatedly using Pain Absorption, swapping out Demon for another legend, and then swapping back into Demon to reset your energy back to 50. This resistance then gets buried under cover boons like Might, Stability, Aegis, Protection, and other boons that your group generates as you start a fight, making it difficult to remove and rendering movement controlling conditions like Immob or Fear largely ineffective against a group using pre-stacking. I've included this clip of me stacking resistance here so you can see how it works, and this is a technique that you'll see some skilled open field groups using if you watch their boon bars before they start to fight. But again, just to stress, this isn't something that you have to do if you're playing Renegade, and I hope it's something that gets changed in the future as more people learn about it, because it's just kind of annoying. For when to use Cele Renegade in a squad, it's not a profession that works in every squad composition, and requires a little bit of planning to use effectively. The most natural pairing is with Cele Firebrand, as that build sacrifices a decent amount of stability uptime to deal more damage, and the stability uptime from Inspiring Reinforcement complements it nicely. Cele Firebrand also generates good quickness, helping with brutality uptime and removing additional stability from enemies. The damage mitigation from Rite of the Great Dwarf, as well as the resistance from Pain Absorption, also mean that Renegade is well suited to groups that want to push into melee and then stay there, out-sustaining an enemy with constant damage pressure and good defensive boon uptime. Renegade is also one of the few professions in World vs. World that generates consistent party-wide fury, and it does this extremely well. This makes it well suited to being paired with damage professions that struggle with fury uptime, but really want to deal critical hits, like DPS Spellbreaker or Reaper. Anyway, that about does it for Cele Renegade. Normally for these kinds of videos, I'd include some kind of rotation example clip from a real fight, so that you can see how the profession works while you're playing. But really, for Cele Renegade, you can get all the practice you need just hitting a training dummy. And outside of the legend swaps to trigger charge and mists, it's a very low intensity build overall, with large portions of your rotation spent actively not using your skills, in order to save up your energy for a few specific high value abilities. This makes it easy to focus on your own positioning, dodging, and overall survival. So if you're looking for a build that's not too demanding, doesn't take quick reaction times, and is very easy to practice and improve with, look no further than Renegade. If you have questions or critiques about the choices that I've made here, let me know in the comments. And if you like these build guide videos, why not like the video and subscribe to the channel to let me know. I also stream on Twitch every Friday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, if you want to watch me play some of these builds in real time and ask questions there. But until then, I've been Chef, and enjoy the rest of your day.